Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Lentini, and welcome to my live, which is about you can train your mind to be happy. But there are some steps. There's some steps that it takes. But the beauty is, with these steps, you don't have to do anything. There's a story about the Buddha that he was selected as a young child. People suspected he was the Buddha, and he wanted to make sure that he was, in fact, going to be the perfect soul, be the Buddha. And he struggled for years. He felt the struggle as he studied under sages and gurus and reading ancient texts. He was doing everything he could to be the perfect soul. And he got exhausted after many years. And if you know the story of Siddhartha, he fell under a tree exhausted. And you know, the picture of the laughing Buddha is him laughing at himself when he got over himself, when he realized there's really nothing to do to become the perfect soul. There's nothing to do to be happy. There was accepting himself and laughing that he was human and it was okay. And that's when he was recognized as the Buddha. How many of us are hiding things, our authentic self? We want to be seen as someone perfect, and so we hide under a mask. Red Hawk, in his book, Self Observation, and I'm going to tell you, self observation is the beginning to deciding to be happy with nothing to do. And here's what he talks about. Red Hawk says, what you feed grows, and what you don't feed withers and dies. And that's a principle of the universe. Physicists will tell you that the Big Bang was energy feeding on itself, and then it exploded into particles of all different types, right? Whether you're a physicist or not, quarks and neutrons and neutrinos and the Higgs boson and all other electrons and protons, and they were all feeding on themselves, which led to the birth of stars and then planets. We live in a miracle, number one, right? That's the first thing I want to tell you is we live in a miracle. I know that because on November 18th, 2002, I flatlined while in intensive care 5 days after entering the hospital. And I can tell you, even getting in the ambulance on the 13th of November, I was grateful. I had been studying, kind of like the Buddha, I'm not the Buddha, the power of gratitude and studying all kinds of soulful work, studying different faiths. And one second I'm in intensive care, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite, one with pure consciousness, as Deepak Chopra says. We come from pure consciousness and we return to pure consciousness. And what I discovered on the other side, in what I now call what's next, is that the divine is never absent from us. There was only the now. And it was a scene and a scene and a scene. I could not put the events together. There was no past or future. And I was like a drop of water in the ocean. I was a drop in the infinite. And words don't describe it, but I can tell you infinite everything. Love and grace, mercy, and laughter and happiness. And the one thing that didn't go with me that I recognized is the acorn brain, right? What I call the small-minded thinker, what some call the little tyrant, or Rainier Maria Rilke called it the little hooligan. That leaves us. But Red Hawk says, as you can start to notice your triggers, just notice them. There's no work to do. Then at some point you can decide which ones you'll feed, which ones you want to grow. And those that you don't pay attention to, that you don't get enrolled in by reacting, right? Where you might notice your first trigger in the middle of an explosion, an angry explosion, and just notice it. Because the next time you might choose something else when that trigger reappears. And then happiness would be something you start feeding and it'll grow. In my book, Sage Advice, um, one of the early sages that I wrote about was, that I included in the book was Rumi. I love some of the things he said. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to end up there. Well, don't worry. We all will, whether we believe in it or not. That's the fascinating thing. And he lived in 1207 to 1273. You want to get some confirmation of what we're here to do? Read Baruch Spinoza's God of Spinoza. It's amazing. And he wrote that in the 1600s. In fact, Einstein used to answer, "What's your idea of God?" And he'd say, "Well, the superior reasoning power that created this unimaginable universe, right, what I call a miracle, forms my idea of God." The other thing he would say, read the God of Spinoza. Go read it. It's fascinating. It's included in my book, Sage Advice, if you want to get it on Amazon, but you don't have to. You could email me. I'll send you one. How about that? Living in a miracle. You could accept a gift. Here's a few other things that Rumi said. Ignore those that make you fearful and sad, that degrade you back towards disease and death, right? And we see so much of that in this society. Our leaders, in fact, model small minded, acorn brain thinking, right? That's what I call small minded thinking. This thinking, if we think with our hubris and our ego that we think like God, the creator, the goddess, the divine, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Abraham, the Christ, the Mohammed, whatever you call it, it had no one religion, by the way. It had no one sex. It had no political affiliation, right? How we rail against people that disagree or belong to one party or another. It's craziness. We know it's craziness on some level. I'm not here to judge that. We need a dialogue, and there was no judgment. That's the other thing. So the first event was my knowing that I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite. The second event, like a theater act, the next scene was my life review. Only the good I had done, the lives I had touched, flashed before me. Family, friends, helping people move, buying someone a sandwich, giving someone money on the street, smiling at someone. Smiling at someone. Somehow I knew they needed a smile. I was just doing that. And you know, what Red Hawk talks about was that what he noticed underneath the triggers, he found the program running the program, right? Like our computers are programmed to have all kinds of applications we click on, but there's a program running the program. Fascinating, right? That programmers wrote them that way. There's a program running the program. Like humans, we have a program running the program. And Red Hawk said that his program, what he discovered was self-loathing, self-hatred for aspects of himself as he discovered them. And then finding the humor in it because we're not perfect. We're not supposed to be. He also says this is the Earth School and that we're in kindergarten here on Earth, in the Earth School. Now, I don't know if there's other schools, but I can tell you that what I learned was my job is to do good. And I was 50, I'm embarrassed to say, before I learned that. I did good. I did lots of good, as I saw in my life review. But I made myself wrong for so much of it that I shouldn't be. I would listen to people that say, "Why are you giving that guy money?" or "Why are you doing that?" And then all the mistakes I've made, because I am human, I now embrace those most days, because that self-loathing, that program running the program, is under there somewhere when it's confronting to discover something that we didn't think we had, or I didn't think I had. People that bother us the most are actually mirroring aspects of our personality and our character to our back to ourselves. The ones that bother us most are something we've yet to uncover in ourselves. We have yet to admit it. And it's okay. Sometimes we're dummies. Sometimes we're shitheads. Pardon my French. I wrote the book, You May Be Full of Shit If, and freely admit that I might be and am full of shit all over the place. It's okay. We're humans. John Maxwell says he's full of shit somewhere, and that our job in life is to get over ourselves. That's the key to happiness. And in this society, we focus on the intellect, right? The more letters after someone's name, the more important they are, makes them an expert. They're not experts in life and in living, and we don't teach that in our schools. That should be part of the curriculum. How to notice their triggers, to choose what to feed and what not to feed. Even my doggies agree. Just ponder it, that we live in a miracle, that if you just start to accept yourself the way you are and look at your triggers and decide what you're going to feed. This is great advice, by the way, for me. I've been practicing it myself, and I say never follow anyone or anything blindly. Prove this to yourself, that as you just notice your triggers, you're gradually developing a level of thinking above your thinking, above the small minded thinker. And yet we live in something infinite, and we think like the creator of an infinite universe that's still expanding, still causes pause for physicists. And when they finally discover and say, we know what created this, all you have to do, you don't have to have a lot of letters after your name to say, well, what created that? All of it is infinite. The inquiry is infinite. Osho said, your answers questioned. When are you going to question your answers? So many people have them today, even our leaders. They got all the answers and they know better. And it doesn't matter what party they're in, or what affiliation they have, or what religion or faith, or what organization they're part of. We can see all the people that think they know better. And that's part of their triggers. It's something that they need to get over. But everyone else's journey is none of my business. My journey is my business. Your journey is none of my business. And my journey is none of your business. And managing myself is a job. I just want to let you know. And I'm glad not to wonder or worry about managing others anymore. I don't care if people agree with me or not. I want to challenge people into thinking differently, expand their thinking to model what we live in, which is infinite. From small-minded, limited thinking, are you willing to question yourself, question your answers, and expand into modeling what created a universe? By the way, there was no thinking there. Like I said, the acorn brain, all the thinking we do, and I still do, it wasn't there. Now, I was grateful getting in the ambulance. In fact, waiting on the couch in my partner's office for the ambulance. People said to me, how you doing, Steve? I said, I don't know how my body's doing, but I'm grateful. I never thought about the end. I didn't care. When the EMTs came, I think they thought I was nuts, that I not only needed a doctor in the emergency room, but a shrink, because I said the same thing to them. They said, how you doing? I said, I don't know how my body's doing. I'm grateful. I was looking forward to whatever unfolded. I had been studying the power of gratitude. This was far greater than any study. kind of like Buddha, right? I was studying it, but just being in it, and I allowed it. And little did I know the surrender that was to come, because the third scene in my near death experience was a question: stay or go? And my consciousness surrendered with thy will be done. And I was right back in intensive care. And before that, I had never surrendered like that. I had surrender moments, but I was fighting life. I was going to win. I was going to be the best at what I was doing, the best franchisee for this national sales training program that I had. I was going to do more and more and more and more and more and more. I was going to win. You know, Eckhart Tolle says, when you fight life, life fights you. That's where I was at. But the amazing gift was that life gave me a whack with a 2x4, I call it. The Creator gave it to me. And I found my calling. People say to me, when are you going to retire? And I say, you don't retire from a calling, you retire from a job. I'll be doing one of these maybe on a live, and I'll pass, and you'll say, wow, Steve went to what's next? Yay, and I was there. Might be worth millions for you someday, right? The acorn brain. Nothing from the outside that we think has value, titles and intellect and houses and accomplishments and books and movies and things we've done, nothing means anything. It won't ever validate you if that's what you're hoping for. That your job or your work or all the things you own will validate who you are. No. Satisfaction and happiness is a choice. And when you decide to live from the inside out, you'll find that happiness, and it's very simple to do. There's no work to do. You can go sign up for all kinds of programs. There's lots of them. Go spend a lot of money, sign up for a program. If you'd like more coaching on it, I'm glad to provide it for you. You'll get interviewed because not everybody's ready. I don't take everyone. I can't. There's only so much time in a day. I have other coaches. I have over 220 coaches available to me. So if we're not a fit, I'll find you someone. But happiness is your job in this earth school. And the only way that you can help yourself by proving this to yourself is begin to notice, where are you not showing up as you and being okay with it, being okay with your mistakes, your failures, where you let people down. You're supposed to. Where did I'm sorry come from? Or thanks for understanding? Or I apologize. I haven't met anyone perfect. And you know, even in the ancient text, whichever ones you're choosing, could be some of the religious ones, I recognize small-minded thinking where the human took over from the inspired writing. And yet people follow these books today to the letter. There was no mention of sin. I don't want to disappoint some of the religious people. It's okay. I think faith is wonderful. Whatever brings you to God. But I can tell you, all the searching I did was like Buddha's. I found that in that near-death experience, there was only the now. And the infinite was never absent. Don't you think that might be true in a miracle where we're floating on this little planet in the midst of a vacuum, 99% empty? I don't know. You've got to prove that to yourself. But I just would like you to consider that happiness comes from expanding your thinking and getting over yourself. You're a mess. So what? I'm a mess. So what? Someone dies. So what? You hurt someone. So what? What did you learn from it? How did you grow? Remember, if the divine is never absent, like I experienced, always in the now, when your life looks messy, that's the Creator, whatever you call it, working to wake you up. I wrote the book, Wake Up, Jump Into Your Life. It's available on Amazon. And I had courses on it. And I'm going to begin classes on it again online about how to wake up to the miracle that life is and learn to embrace life just as it is. That's the book I'm writing now, In Plain Sight. Learn to see what most people miss and embrace life as it is. To embrace it. Embrace all the differences, the people that upset you because they disagree. Instead of railing against them, laugh. Laugh at yourself. Say, wow, I really disagree with this person. Maybe I should have a dialogue with him. Begin to question your answers. Now, I have a podcast, Different Thinking for Different Times, and I talk more about this. I also have a podcast, You May Be Full of Shit If, where I talk about where we all make each other wrong. I'm not making anyone wrong on it. That's why I wrote the second book a few weeks later, because Amazon would not advertise it. They published it. It's available. I sell a number of them. The 2 weeks later, I wrote and changed it and updated it and added some stuff, made it a little different. You might be full of number 2. After all, we know better. The woke edition. And where I use, instead of the 4-letter word for crap, I use crap and poo head and poo poo because I didn't want to close off people that would be offended, but I wanted them to question it, and I didn't make them wrong. What I said was, where we want to be right and making so many others wrong, we're missing the point. We're not having a dialogue. We're having a monologue. I'm right. I'll show you why. Doesn't sound crazy when I say it, but that's the emotion behind all the railing that you see. Even our leaders, right? Our political leaders, all they do is get up and go, this one's wrong. No, they're wrong. It's a mess because we're making it a mess so that we can learn and grow to overcome it for those that want to. If you don't want to, if you want to believe the story you're telling yourself and gather evidence to prove it's true, that's called confirmation bias. Look that up, right? Gathering evidence to prove whatever side you're on is true, despite evidence to the contrary. That's craziness, right? Keep doing what you're doing and expect a different result. Just ponder it. Prove it to yourself. Don't take my word for it. There is a way. Red Hawk has a great book called Self-Observation. There's many other books. Wise Mind, Open Mind by Roland Alexander. Dr. Sri Kumar Rao wrote Are You Ready to Succeed? And those two books talk about developing that level of thinking above your thinking. I think Self-Observation by Red Hawk, he talks about some of the people I've studied, Gurdjieff and P.D. Ouspensky, who all talked about the triggers. And he gives you a very simple method. You don't even have to go buy the book now. Notice what triggers you. Even in the middle of a response, a reaction, I call it, to a trigger. I hyphenate reacting because reacting is something previously learned. It's probably based on fear, which is fight, flight, or freeze, what we learned early in our DNA. Some say back to the caveman days, cave person days, excuse me. Just think about it. Will you embark on proving something new to yourself by expanding your thinking? Will you let your small-minded thinker run you? That's Rainier Maria Rilke said. Will you let the little hooligan run you, or will you run it? Most people in this society believe they're thinking. Some scientists believe the mind is the end. That's consciousness. When we die, that's it. Wow. In an infinite universe, there's nothing else. That's not what I experienced. I think we should call death what's next, not death. Hey, Uncle Jim went to what's next. Yay! With what we know about life, there is some faiths that say, with what we know about life, we should cry at birth and cheer at death, cheer at what's next, right? Because it's a journey in an infinite universe. This is a stop. Surrender to the moment and know that that's where the divine is, urging you to wake up, probably in your darkest times, your darkest moments. There's big gifts there. I mean, for me, that's what was the case. It was a gift, albeit not wrapped as I would have liked, but it was an amazing journey, beginning with gratitude, getting in the ambulance, and just I had an awe and wonder about what was to come. And that's how we can live our lives. Awe and wonder about what's to come. And I'm not afraid of what's next. Of course, I never was. I learned that because I never thought about it. I'm looking forward again to what's next. It won't matter to me. I'll grateful every night I say thy will be done. And then when I wake up here, okay, I get to work here in the physical world. But I know that this won't go with me. I'll be relieved of that thinker because the expanded thinker is there. And there was no thinking. It was only a knowing. It was fascinating and mind blowing to this day. And it'll be 21 years in November. And it's with me like it was 5 minutes ago. In fact, I suggest we should all experience it. Not before this video ends. I wish you all a long life. But then we wouldn't be so petty. Why is that? Why is that? How do you feel when you do good? 99% of the people I ask say, I feel great. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Why do you think? Well, I guess I'm supposed to do more good. Yeah, okay, well, do that. Don't take my word for it. For me, it was etched onto the fabric of time. I hope that's the same for you. I did have one guy say, well, he was reluctant. I guess I feel good. What do you think his trigger was? He didn't want to be doing good. That's okay. Because he was still doing good. Because he said, I guess I feel good. Must have done some. Think about it. Think about it. Think about what Rumi said. Right? I'll leave you with that thought again. My soul is from elsewhere. I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. And I can tell you for me, I'm sure of that. I was there. Something to ponder. All right. Any questions? Steve at stevelentini.com. Steve at stevelentini.com. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your triggers. Enjoy your messes. Enjoy your faults. Find out for yourself where happiness begins. Thanks.